If you love movies and movie discussions, you've come to the right place. Who am I, you ask? I am The Wiz, and I'm here to review the 2023 Best Picture nominee, Killers of the Flower Moon, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Lily Gladstone, Robert De Niro, Brendan Fraser, and Jesse Plemons, directed by Martin Scorsese. Before we do that, let's get into the plot. This is set in the 1920s, and this is when the Osage people are having a real tough go of it until they luck out and their land is in the middle of some oil. They become some of the richest people in the country. This leads to a string of murders that happens to all the Osage people, which is centered around Molly, who is played by Lily Gladstone, who is married to Ernest, played by Leonardo DiCaprio. But what Molly doesn't realize is that her husband is working with a local hero, William Hale, played by Robert De Niro, in taking out all these Osage Indians in order to get the land rights for these oil fields and for the money. All right, now we got into the plot. Let's get into my 3 points. And my 3 points for Killers of the Flower Moon. Number one is, this is a very well-made visual film. We already know at this point that Scorsese is an incredible director. He makes excellent movies, at least visually, and he has a grasp on exactly how he wants a film to be made, what it has to look like, and how everything has to work. And this is a great example of that. He is known more for his crime films, and this is a crime film, but this is more of a historical crime epic. But he does a very good job in this film, creating a very interesting visual appeal to the movie, while also holding a story together that, even though I think it is still a little bit too long, it never really is boring. It's still a captivating story with some really good performances. So let's get into the second point now that I mention it. Gladstone and De Niro are great. DiCaprio is miscast. So let's get into the pluses. Gladstone has a really good performance in this movie. She plays Molly incredibly well, both physically and emotionally in this movie. When she gets to the point where she's sick, she does a really convincing job looking that part and acting that part. On top of that, her character is very interesting because she's stern but also loving. She does it in a very subtle but powerful way when it comes to her attraction and her love of Ernest, even though she's still very defensive in certain stances. A lot of movies, when they do this, they try and tone down a lot of those aspects of that character to make her more loving, make her more amenable, acceptable, stuff like that. But she remains that character while still showing that sensitivity, which I think is a very good job on her. And of course, when she goes through her illness, she does an amazing job portraying that. De Niro in this movie, I think, is the best that he has been since Heat. In his advanced age, he's had some good performances. I would think of Silver Linings Playbook. Some would say The Irishman. I thought he was good, but I think he couldn't pull off being young even with that technology that was incorporated in that movie. But he is really good as William Hale. He goes from someone who is beloved and is kind to a real menace, but it's done so gradually in the film that you can almost miss it until a certain point in the film. I think he did a really good job in this movie. I think Gladstone's is a better performance, but De Niro does a hell of a job in this movie. Whenever he's in this movie, he puts in a great performance. As for DiCaprio, I think he's miscast in this movie, and the main reason why is because I can't see him as an idiot. I can't see him as a dimwit. I can see him as conniving, I can see him as evil, but a moron, no. When he's acting like he doesn't get something, or he's not as quick, it was kind of a struggle to actually believe that, and I think it was kind of a struggle for him to actually perform that role. And that's really a tough thing to do when you are intelligent and you have a lot of good social intelligence as well, because Ernest doesn't have that type of emotional or actual intelligence. But to play that, you'll have to dial back certain cues that more intelligent and perceptive people have, and I don't think DiCaprio does that very well. I think for what it is, it's a fine performance, but at no point was I believing that he was as dim-witted or as slow as he was portraying Ernest to be. And my third point, though not as bad as The Irishman, this is still too long. This is about 3 hours and 30 minutes. towards the third act, I really started feeling the length. The first two aren't as bad, even though I think there should have been certain things in the film that could have been cut, pared down, maybe even finessed in a certain way. Some plot lines, for examples, are Molly's first husband. I don't see why that had to be there. There are certain characters that are given a little bit of depth that I don't think was really necessary. I'm not even saying like cutting this to 2 hours. I would say like 2 hours and 30 minutes, maybe 2 hours and 45 minutes would probably been better. But this was still a little too long for this movie. But I gotta say though, Thelma Schoonmaker is probably making some easy money. I'm being facetious. Of course, there's more to editing a film than making it shorter. But I kind of joked throughout the entire movie that I was like, wow, this must have been the easiest paycheck Thelma Schoonmaker has ever made, because this looks like it really wasn't edited that much. Again, being facetious, I know it takes more to edit a movie than just making it smaller in length, but I just find that kind of funny that someone who has gotten so much acclaim for editing his movies, and I would also say part of the reason why Scorsese's movies are as beloved is because of Schoonmaker's editing. I just found it funny. It's like, man, she must have been like, oh, okay, you're doing one of those 4-hour movies, Marty? Okay. Just let me know when you need me. I'll be doing something. It's like, yes. Thanks, Thelma. So who is this film for? I would say this is for history junkies. This is a movie that deals with a topic that I don't think gets really discussed a lot, not only in a historical aspect, but also in a mass media aspect with movies or TV shows. And this is a fascinating story. So if you are into history movies or just want to see history depicted on the silver screen, I would say this is a great thing to watch. I would also say this is for Scorsese fans if you're not bothered by the length. I think this is a good film by Scorsese. It's visually arresting. When it comes to storytelling, it is very well done. I just think it's way too long. Overall, I will recommend Killers of the Flower Moon. It is not one of Scorsese's best, but I think it is still a good movie, and if you are a fan of his, you probably should want to watch it. I was kind of surprised by a couple things. One, I didn't find the violence to be as brutal as I was expecting it to be. I read that this had some very brutal scenes in this movie, but I was kind of used to the type of violence because of other Scorsese films, so this wasn't as bad. And the other is the length didn't bother me that much, but it was still pretty noticeable. Other than that, I still think it's a quality film. Gladstone and De Niro are great in this movie, but I also think DiCaprio is miscast. But overall, I thought it was a good movie. It's not one of Martin Scorsese's best, but it's still a good movie. So overall, I do recommend Killers of the Flower Moon. Now, if you want my full review on this movie, you can go to my website at IamTheWiz.com. You'll have my full written review right on the site, along with a link to the video that has this review that you just listened to. Thank you for listening to this review. If you want to know what we're reviewing in the next couple of days, you can look on the screen right now to see what's coming up next. If you like what you heard, go ahead and leave a like on this video. If you want to discuss your opinion on the film or the review itself, please leave a comment. And if you want to hear more, subscribe to the channel. Thank you again for listening. I will talk to you next time.